Now, each Monday we hear from the former Premier of Queensland, Campbell Newman. We know that the budget's being handed down tomorrow. We already know it'll be economic carnage. The spend-a-thon will continue. What amuses me, and I'm sure it amuses my viewers too, is this whole idea boosting manufacturing in Australia. Excuse me, has no one opened their electricity bill recently? How the hell are we supposed to believe that manufacturing in this country will mysteriously walk back through the door when we're paying amongst the highest electricity prices in the world? We're closing the doors on coal-fired power stations, and our only source of energy, well, it is our only source of energy that's cheap and reliable. Politicians subscribe us to this renewable energy nonsense, wind and solar, of course heavily subsidised by government, and then in an attempt to deflect such criticism, the government says, oh, we'll get a gas-fired power plant in the Hunter Valley. No one seems to care for the fact that gas extraction costs 3 times more than that of coal. 90% of our coal resources are mined for less than $1.75 a kilojoule. And almost all our gas resources, because of the nature and the geography of the terrain, cost more than $6 per gigajoule to extract. And yet we go into this folly that manufacturing in Australia and the jobs that come with it are just around the corner. We're kidding. Campbell Newman joins me from Brisbane. Campbell, the manufacturing boost, is this an illusion? I mean, they're going to pump $1.5 billion into the manufacturing sector after seeing that we're reliant on overseas supply chains, but is this tomorrow or next decade?
I'm really concerned about that announcement, Alan, because I think it smacks of what, frankly, the Labor Party would do, which would be to try to pick winners with big business. I mean, a huge slice of manufacturing in Australia is actually from small and medium-sized enterprises. And you know what, Alan? You know what they need to actually get going, to be unleashed? Well, that's it, Alan. We need to unleash them. We need to cut the price of power and energy. We need to get rid of the red tape and bureaucracy of running a business. We need to actually shorten dramatically approval times from councils, from state and federal governments. And finally, we need to sort out IR, Alan.
Yes.
But to the energy point that you're making, let's take Texas. Why do I pick Texas? Because Texas is very similar in so many ways to, say, this state of Queensland that I'm in tonight. And we could be a manufacturing powerhouse here, but we have to deal with those problems I just mentioned. And just do a comparison. The price for consumers, the price, and this is exchange rate adjusted, price of electricity in Texas for a family is around 16 or 17 cents a kilowatt hour, and it's around 25 to 26 for a Queensland family. And you know, you can obviously assume the same in terms of business.
Well, we're ranked the lowest.
Lower cost.
Yeah, we're ranked the lowest amongst OECD countries, the lowest in terms of manufacturing self-sufficiency. And if our energy prices are amongst the highest in the world, and there's no announcement of a new coal-fired power plant to be built, I mean, are we trying to kid someone here?
Well, we are, and we've got the coalition, you know, people like Christian Porter running around thundering darkly about wage theft, using the language of the Labor Party and the unions, when the simple fact is it's really difficult and complicated to employ people in Australia. So again, we need to deal with energy prices, red tape, the time it takes to get stuff approved, IR, and you know what? We'll unleash the creativity, the innovation, the entrepreneurial spirit of Australians.
I mean, government get out of the road. Yeah. I mean, tomorrow, Campbell, we're going to get
out of the road.
Yeah, we're going to get a budget where the government is getting further and further into our lives. I mean, our political advantage.
Yeah. And the Liberal Party were meant to be about, you know, the Liberal Party that Menzies founded were about small and medium-sized enterprises, about self-reliance, about having a go. And we're seeing a corporatist Liberal Party working with the big end of town. And there are a few commentators who've been writing pieces talking about what happens when you do that. You get basically rent-seeking, you get all sorts of really weird and quite terrible outcomes for the taxpayer.
But see, you've got over 160 coal-fired power stations being built around the world. They'll use our coal, and there's none being built here. We need someone tomorrow night to talk up our competitive advantage, and it is we've got the potential to have the cheapest energy in the world. Why don't we exploit that potential?
I think, Alan, that is just an important, vitally important, critical building block. And we need politicians to be, you know, leaning on the energy companies and talking about the target, which is to actually get the price of electricity down to our manufacturing competitors. I mean, the United States has got to be a benchmark that we should try and, you know, aspire to. We've got to get our prices down to places like Texas.
What about the Federal Labor Party and the speaking points, which are instructing federal Labor MPs to not take a position on the recently announced Narrabri gas project in New South Wales? And then you've got the National Secretary of the Australian Workers Union, Daniel Walton, urging federal Labor to back the Narrabri gas project and other gas supply projects. They're not a mess, are they? I was actually speaking to a senior Liberal figure the other day who said that if Joel Fitzgibbon was running the Labor Party, he'd most probably win the next election.
Joel Fitzgibbon would give it a red-hot go, and I can say this, that he certainly understands what blue-collar Australia, true working people need to see from a Labor government. And if he became the leader, he would certainly have, I think, a very positive influence in actually getting the Labor Party back on track. And that would be bad. That would be bad for the coalition. But, you know, how ridiculous that Anthony Albanese is actually so scared to actually take a stand.
He says don't talk gas.
For workers that he
says don't talk gas,
don't talk
and his leading union says, hang on, we're in support of it. Joel Fitzgibbon says, we want coal-fired power in the Hunter Valley, and Anthony Albanese says, I'm not too sure about that. And then the Liberals not too sure either. Listen, Queensland, I've got to get you before you go. They're going to open their borders on November 1, provided there are no unlinked cases over the preceding 28 days. Isn't there an election on the day before?
Alan, what an extraordinary coincidence that there's an election on the 31st.
Amazing.
And on the 1st of November, suddenly it's all safe. Back to business. You know, like, did Dr. Young follow the science in selecting the 1st of November?
Listen,
you know, like,
listen,
Campbell,
let me ask you this.
Is it not,
surely it was a political mistake for the LNP opposition in Queensland to blindly follow Labor on all these border closures.
Well, Alan, look, I know that you may not agree with me on this, but look, I was out for a walk on Sunday afternoon with Lisa, and we saw this billboard on the north side of Brisbane saying Frecklington sort of called for the border to be open 64 times. So, yeah, she has been out there, but there's been a bit of flip-flopping along the way as well, which, you know, I guess is what you're reflecting. But, you know, I think, and we've seen, by the way, a Courier Mail poll released this afternoon, it'll be all over the front page of the Courier tomorrow, where the Labor Party are now in front, according to the YouGov poll, 52-48 two-party preferred. Extraordinary. And I believe it's because they haven't, the LNP actually haven't gone hard enough about the mismanagement of COVID-19 in the state.
No. I mean, there's a golden rule in politics. I mean, Frecklington has no cut-through whatsoever. There's a golden rule. I might add, Campbell, she won't come on this program, but there's a golden rule in politics. When you're sick of saying it, the opposition are going, the electorate are going to hear it. Now, you've got things like the border closures. You've got things like debt. You've got things like Jackie Trad. You've got the Bundaberg, the Paradise Dam. I mean, goodness me, you could bury them in deficiencies and limitations.
This government, this Labor government, does not deserve to be re-elected. It has been an appalling government with scandals. But overall, the biggest scandal is the way that economically the state has languished, where it should be, like I was saying before. It should be the Texas of Australia. It should be the land of opportunity.
They are in front. And then you've got this AFL grand final, and that Dr. Jeanette Young is preaching to us how we can conduct Christmas celebrations, only 50 people, and they'll be allowed. But then on Saturday, October 24, 38 days before December 1, the grand final will be played at the Gabba. 35,000 people are expected to attend. I mean, what the hell is going on? Who's making
Alan?
What?
Well, Alan, again, it must be the science, Alan. Come on, it's got to be. There's got to be some risk assessment of these things. And clearly, mere mortals like you and I, we're not qualified to even speak about these matters. I counsel you against.
If they allow me across that border, I'm coming to your place for a Christmas party, and I'm going to count the people there, and I promise to dob you in.
And you're welcome.
Good on you, Campbell.
You're welcome, Alan. You're welcome.
We'll talk to you next week. There he is, Campbell Newman.